Boom! There it was again. That explosive noise rattling the corridors of power in Washington, D.C. and Beijing. The thunderous blast of the Trump administration dropping yet another trade war bomb on the Chinese telecoms Goliath Huawei. "Banned," shrieked Trump in his usual tactful manner as he stuffed Huawei onto America's so-called entity list in May 2019, effectively blocking US firms from selling technology and components to the Chinese tech powerhouse over, you guessed it, national security concerns. National security concerns? Don't make me laugh. This was pure, unadulterated protectionism, designed to quash the terrifying technology challenge posed by China's new big dog. It was the desperate last stand of American domination over world tech. But blacklisting Huawei like some kind of villainous Smallville Lex Luthor company? That's not going to work. Why? Because make no mistake, Huawei is a superhero tech sensation that's been furiously whipping up a red cape for the past 30 years. Today, Huawei stands an undisputed technology behemoth astride the globe. This Chinese leviathan casts a vast shadow over the world's telecommunications infrastructure and devices, having audaciously gate-crashed the fortress of Western technological dominance. With nearly 200,000 employees spanning over 170 countries, Huawei raked in a mammoth $136 billion in global revenue just last year. It towers imperiously as the world's largest telecom equipment maker and second biggest smartphone vendor. Even more foreboding for American egos, it leads the pivotal new 5G race. Make no mistake, this rising Chinese dragon has well and truly smashed through the front gates, an Asian juggernaut now only ranked behind Samsung and Apple in size and influence. Yet Huawei's stratospheric ascent from nowhere to world domination has almost defied belief. To comprehend how this behemoth emerged from empty fields, one must rewind back over 3 decades. In 1987, Huawei was birthed in the coastal city of Shenzhen by Ren Zhengfei, a former People's Liberation Army engineer, along with a mere 5 other founding employees. With just 21,000 yuan, equivalent to around $5,000 at the time, as starting capital, the company's prospects seemed dim. But with entrepreneurial zeal firing in their bellies, the fledgling firm started reselling imported telecom switches in the 1980s, before transitioning to develop their own technologies during China's telecoms boom in the 1990s. It was a wild decade of breakneck growth as Huawei aggressively undercut rivals and expanded into rural networks by offering bargain basement prices that state-owned vendors balked at. By the time China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, Huawei had already become the country's top telecoms player. Yet rather than resting, ambitious founder Ren now turned his sights to taking on the Western giants like Ericsson and Nokia on the global stage. It seemed a fool's errand at the time. But backed by China's explosive economic rise and their own relentless work ethic, Huawei's conquering crusade soon kicked into overdrive. The hungry dragon had awoken. The 2000s saw Huawei aggressively storm overseas markets across Asia, Africa, and Latin America with cheap but reliable telecom gear perfectly tailored for developing countries. Huawei was made in China but suddenly had global ambitions. With R&D spending ramped up massively, innovative new products and IP soon followed. Huawei was morphing from low-cost follower to cutting-edge pioneer before the world's eyes. By 2012, it had unseated Ericsson as the #1 telecom infrastructure provider globally, audaciously toppling the Swedish giant from its throne. To the shock of the West, network domination was now in Chinese hands. Huawei's consumer electronics also exploded onto the scene, muscling its way to become one of the top 5 smartphone vendors on the planet. Both in technology and branding, glitzy new devices like the P and Mate series matched the world's best. The rise of Huawei epitomized China's transition from copycat to pioneer, an unstoppable dragon now breathtakingly unleashed upon the world. So make no mistake how this behemoth emerged in just 3 decades. Visionary ambition, tireless work ethic, and generous state support propelled Huawei from an unknown Shenzhen startup to a globe-straddling colossus. Yet today, this tech giant faces its biggest battle of all, as American fears over its rise threaten Huawei's very future. But to comprehend the magnitude of this Chinese champion, one must never forget how astoundingly far it's come. Because underestimate this dominant dragon at your peril. It's already defied the odds to reach the mountaintop once before. When the Trump administration dropped its trade ban bomb on Huawei in 2019, it was supposed to stop China's tech champion dead in its tracks. Huawei crippled and burning, its global ambitions crushed into dust. Yet nearly 2 years on, this exiled Chinese phoenix still has some defiant feathers left in its wings. There's no question America's ban has battered Huawei like a sledgehammer. Cutting it off from vital semiconductors and software was designed to be a devastating blow. Still, scorched earth has often been the breeding ground where Huawei legends are born. After all, few expected Huawei to become a global force when it began life back in 1987, with just $3,000 of founder Ren Zhengfei's savings. Yet not only did Huawei rapidly rise from China's telecom ashes, it audaciously took on Western giants like Ericsson and Nokia on their own turf. And won. Today, this homegrown hero stands as the world's largest telecom equipment provider, second biggest smartphone vendor, and a top 5 technology brand globally. Last year, it raked in $136 billion in revenue, despite Washington's strangling efforts. So while America's ban has battered and bloodied the company, Huawei still has plenty of fight left in it. Fueled by patriotic spirit, it's vigorously rebuilding itself behind the trade blockade, using every tool and talent within China's fortress. With semiconductors and software access severed, Huawei is pouring billions into R&D to close the gap. In 2021, it plowed a massive $21 billion into innovation, more than even Apple spends annually. This intense focus is already generating results. Take Huawei's crucial smartphone segment, which looked finished after losing access to Google's Android and chips from Qualcomm. Yet through national pride and necessity, Huawei rapidly birthed an alternative mobile ecosystem. Its home-cooked Harmony OS now powers all Huawei smartphones and boasts 100 million users in China alone. Bolstered by patriotic consumers, Huawei incredibly shipped 200 million handsets globally last year despite sourcing woes. With its next P60 flagship expected to match the iPhone 14's specs, Huawei's future in mobile seems assured. The global 5G landscape also increasingly glimmers with hope. Huawei touts over 3,000 5G patents and remains central to China's massive network rollout. Overseas, the picture is bleaker, with bans across the West. But its competitively priced 5G gear remains irresistible in Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Huawei's enterprise services are also holding steady by targeting China's own digital transformation. Cloud, AI, and smart cities play to its strengths while avoiding foreign technology dependence. Make no mistake, America's ban has still inflicted tremendous damage. But much like the mythical phoenix, Huawei is rising from the ashes with newfound self-reliance. This vicious US attack has lit a fire in Huawei's soul that cannot be extinguished. Its legions of supremely motivated Chinese engineers are working tirelessly to rebuild its capabilities from scratch, fueled by national pride and world-beating ambitions. With 1.4 billion patriotic consumers cheering it on, China alone can give Huawei ample resources to thrive independently. Yet global domination clearly remains its priority. Being forced to develop homegrown solutions has made the company even more capable long-term. Survival of the fittest. While shut out across NATO, Huawei is vigorously turning towards emerging markets to lead technological development. Its products are spreading across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East almost unchallenged. By weaponizing technology against Chinese rivals, America risks accelerating their independent innovation capabilities and handing them leadership across global South nations by default. That's quite an own goal. The reality is, China now views indigenous technological prowess as absolutely indispensable to its future power, especially after the Huawei ban wake-up call. Developing homegrown solutions is directly linked to national security in Beijing's eyes. In that sense, America's attack has been a blessing in disguise, giving China's development an electric jolt of urgency, a Sputnik-scale shock to the system. While Huawei's sales remain squeezed, its R&D engine is entering warp speed thanks to generous state support. This accelerated trajectory will have dramatic ripple effects across China's entire innovation ecosystem. With the full might of China's scientific community energized, expect more breakthroughs across 5G, AI, quantum computing, and more. The tech arms race has truly begun. And with nationalist passions fueling its brightest minds, soon enough, China may take the lead. So while Huawei's wings remain temporarily clipped, its phoenix-like efforts to rise from the ashes of isolation are already paying dividends. It increasingly has the tools, talent, and enormous market to thrive independently if needed. Yet Huawei clearly remains hell-bent on global expansion despite Washington's restrictions. Its technology is spreading across emerging economies largely unchallenged. Battered and burned, but not yet beaten. Huawei's defiance in the face of US containment is testament to its grit. Write off this wounded dragon at your peril. It has plenty of fire left. One thing is certain, China will keep driving towards technological self-reliance out of both pride and necessity now. Huawei's fightback epitomizes this newfound national motivation. While the White House's ban sought to contain China's rise, it has instead lit a fire under the country's brightest minds. Chinese innovation may emerge stronger as a result. So can Huawei still conquer the world after America's ban? Can Huawei's legion of supremely motivated Chinese scientists, programmers and engineers now somehow rapidly rebuild their technological capabilities from the ground up? Or is this mission impossible without American parts and software? Are we witnessing the beginning of the end of Huawei's meteoric rise? Or just another gritty comeback chapter in this sensational tech Cold War saga? It won't be easy, but don't bet against this phoenix rising from the ashes. While it may have been put down temporarily, it certainly isn't out. This exiled champion remains fueled by defiant ambition. So as technology inevitably becomes the ultimate battleground of the 21st century, the whole world is watching and waiting to find out who comes out on top. What say you, Huawei? Game on!